What if I told you that some of Hollywood's most legendary action stars, known for their death-defying stunts and larger-than-life personas, met tragic ends that shocked the world? Behind the tough guy roles, the high-speed chases, and the exploding set pieces, these men faced battles far more dangerous than anything they ever encountered on screen. But not all heroes get a happy ending. Here are 10 action stars whose deaths were as shocking and tragic as the roles they played. You won't believe what happened to some of these icons. Number 10. Bruce Lee. The martial arts legend's mysterious death shocked the world. But what if everything you've been told about it was a lie? Bruce Lee collapsed suddenly at just 32 years old, at the absolute peak of his career. The official story: cerebral edema from an allergic reaction to a headache medication. But the truth is far more sinister. Lee was making enemies in Hong Kong's underworld. Some insiders whispered about Chinese gangsters putting a hit on him. Others spoke of an ancient family curse. His final hours were surrounded by scandal. He collapsed at an actress's apartment, not his own home, as initially reported. The studio scrambled to protect his image. His son Brandon later died in a freak accident on a movie set. Coincidence, or something more sinister? The Lee family deaths remain Hollywood's most disturbing unsolved mystery. Bruce died just days before the release of Enter the Dragon, the film that would have made him a global superstar, a timing so tragic it feels almost scripted. Number 9. James Dean. Hollywood's ultimate bad boy met a fate so ironic, it feels like the plot of one of his tragic films. Dean, racing his Porsche Spyder at breakneck speeds, crashed violently at a California intersection, his promising life snuffed out at just 24. But here's what they didn't tell you. Dean received a speeding ticket just hours before his death, ignoring the warning that would have saved his life. The car itself, nicknamed Little Bastard, became infamous as cursed. Parts salvaged from the wreckage reportedly caused accidents, injuries, and deaths for years afterward. Dean's broken body was so horrifically mangled that funeral attendees were spared the open casket viewing typical of the era. The ultimate tragedy? Dean's two defining films, Rebel Without a Cause and Giant, were released after his death. He never lived to see his legendary status. His famous quote, "Live fast, die young, leave a good-looking corpse," became a chilling prophecy. Dean's death was so preventable, so needless, that it haunts Hollywood to this day. Number 8. Steve McQueen. The king of cool died in a way that shattered his tough guy image forever. McQueen, who cheated death on screen countless times, couldn't escape the cancer eating him alive at just 50 years old. But here's the devastating truth Hollywood executives tried to hide. McQueen's fatal mesothelioma likely came from the asbestos in movie set insulation and the racing helmets he wore in his dangerous hobby. In his final desperate months, the action star fled to Mexico, seeking miracle cures banned in America. Coffee enemas, laetrile treatments, and mystical healing. His body, once Hollywood's symbol of rugged masculinity, wasted away beyond recognition. The final blow? After battling through experimental treatments, McQueen died from a heart attack following surgery to remove tumors, a procedure American doctors warned would kill him. His last photos, snapped by paparazzi against his will, show a bearded, unrecognizable man who'd lost his legendary physique. McQueen, who made millions performing dangerous stunts, was ultimately killed by simply breathing the air on movie sets. The studio system that made him famous ultimately contributed to his demise. Number 7. Errol Flynn. Hollywood's original swashbuckling heartthrob lived hard, played harder, and died under circumstances so scandalous they're still whispered about today. Flynn, looking decades older than his 50 years thanks to legendary alcohol and drug abuse, collapsed while trying to sell his beloved yacht. A desperate attempt to solve financial problems few knew existed. The truth? The star of Captain Blood and Robin Hood died broke, and his fortune was squandered on women, booze, and failed ventures. His autopsy revealed the body of an 80-year-old man. Decades of hard living had ravaged him from the inside out. But the circumstances surrounding his final moments were even more shocking. Flynn died in the home of a young doctor he'd just met, reportedly after a days-long party binge. His infamous last words, "I've had a hell of a lot of fun, and I've enjoyed every minute of it," mask a tragic reality. Flynn died a pariah in Hollywood, blacklisted after statutory rape trials destroyed his reputation. The studios abandoned the star who'd made them millions. His autobiography, aptly titled My Wicked, Wicked Ways, hit bookstores just days after his body was cold. Number 6. Robert Conrad. The tough guy star of the Wild Wild West survived decades of dangerous stunts only to be betrayed by his own body. Conrad built his career on a macho image, performing death-defying acts without a stuntman and challenging anyone who questioned his toughness. Few fans knew that behind his famous "knock this battery off my shoulder" commercials lurked a man battling chronic pain from injuries that would have stopped most men. Conrad's fearlessness ultimately cost him dearly. A devastating 2003 car crash left him partially paralyzed on his right side, forcing the once virile action star to use a wheelchair. A cruel fate for a man whose entire identity centered on physical prowess. Studio executives kept his health struggles hidden for years, perpetuating the myth of the indestructible action hero. Conrad spent his final years in agony from injuries sustained doing his stunts. The very things that made him famous slowly killed him. His heart finally gave out at 84 after decades of fighting his body's decline. Even in death, his legacy as television's toughest man overshadowed the physical suffering he endured in silence. Number 5. Tyrone Power. Hollywood's dashing swashbuckler died in the most dramatic way possible, collapsing during a sword fight on set at just 44 years old. But the shocking truth, Power had been complaining of chest pains for weeks before his fatal heart attack, but studio bosses forced him to continue the physically demanding role in Solomon and Sheba anyway. Power's death exposed Hollywood's darkest secret. Stars were disposable assets to be worked until they broke. The handsome actor dropped dead mid-scene opposite George Sanders, with cameras rolling. Studio executives' first concern wasn't for the dying star, but for how to salvage the expensive production. They quickly replaced him with Yul Brynner and reshot his scenes, erasing Power from the very film that killed him. Even more heartbreaking, after years of being typecast in action roles, Power had finally convinced studios to let him show his dramatic talent, a chance he never lived to fully realize. His military service during World War II, flying dangerous combat missions, weakened his heart, but Hollywood's grueling demands delivered the final blow. Studio publicity teams worked overtime to downplay how preventable his death truly was. Number 4. Bela Lugosi. Bela Lugosi wasn't just an actor, he was a legend. When he first appeared as Count Dracula in the 1931 classic, audiences were captivated. His thick Hungarian accent, his hypnotic stare, and that eerie charm made him an overnight sensation. But while the world saw a horror icon, behind the scenes, Lugosi was slowly sinking into a nightmare of his own. Typecasting became his curse. After playing Dracula, Lugosi found it nearly impossible to get roles outside the horror genre. Directors didn't want the man, just the monster. And when horror temporarily fell out of favor in Hollywood, so did Lugosi. The jobs stopped coming, the lights dimmed, and the applause turned into silence. To make things worse, Lugosi suffered from sciatica, a painful nerve condition that left him in constant agony. Doctors prescribed him morphine, and soon the addiction took hold. It wasn't long before he was dependent both on the drug and on whatever scraps of work he could find. Desperate to survive, Lugosi ended up working with Ed Wood, a man famously dubbed the worst director in film history. The once revered actor was now starring in ultra-low-budget, cringeworthy films like Plan 9 from Outer Space. It was humiliating, but it was all he had. No big studio came to his rescue. No one cared. When Lugosi died of a heart attack at 73, he had nothing. Not even enough money for his burial. In a haunting twist, he was buried wearing his Dracula cape, not as a final honor, but because his family hoped the publicity stunt would help cover funeral costs. It worked. Frank Sinatra, upon hearing the heartbreaking story, stepped in and paid for the service. Meanwhile, Lugosi's longtime rival, Boris Karloff, who played Frankenstein's monster, continued to enjoy steady work and respect in his final years. The contrast couldn't be more tragic. Lugosi's downfall is more than just a sad story. It's a brutal reminder of how fast Hollywood forgets its heroes once they're no longer useful. His tragic ending remains one of the industry's darkest secrets. Number 3. Vic Morrow. The death of veteran action star Vic Morrow wasn't just tragic. It was a catastrophe that exposed Hollywood's darkest, most criminal secrets. Morrow, known for his tough guy roles in action-packed scenes, met his end during the filming of Twilight Zone, the movie in 1982. While attempting to save 2 illegally hired child actors, Morrow was decapitated by a helicopter blade during a dramatic Vietnam War scene. What makes this tragedy even more haunting is that it was entirely preventable. Morrow's death was caught on camera, exposing the deep-rooted negligence and dangerous practices hidden behind the glitz and glamour of Hollywood. The accident unfolded while the children, aged 6 and 7, were filming in the middle of the night at around 2:30 a.m. under perilous conditions. They had been hired under the table to avoid the necessary work permits, bypassing child labor laws. The stunt that Morrow was performing was a high-risk sequence involving a helicopter flying dangerously close to the actors. Morrow had repeatedly expressed concerns about the safety of the scene, but he was pressured by director John Landis to proceed. The director had knowingly broken multiple safety regulations and failed to secure proper permits, all to get the explosive, dramatic shots he was after. The incident rocked the industry and sparked an investigation. However, despite the severity of the accident, the resulting trial ended in acquittals for Landis and the other filmmakers involved, proving once again that Hollywood often prioritizes its interests over the safety of its actors. For Morrow, who had been hoping for a career comeback, the tragedy became a somber, cautionary tale. The horrific nature of his death meant that his family, including his estranged daughter, actress Jennifer Jason Leigh, learned of the loss through news reports. The footage of Morrow's death remains locked away, a chilling reminder of the industry's darkest secrets and the extreme lengths it sometimes goes to for the sake of a memorable scene. Even in death, Hollywood protected its own, leaving Morrow's legacy tied to a preventable tragedy that the world could never fully forget. Number 2. John Garfield. He didn't die in a gunfight or go down swinging in a ring. John Garfield, star of gritty classics like Body and Soul, was brought down by something much colder: politics and fear. During the height of the McCarthy era, when Hollywood became a hunting ground for suspected communists, Garfield was dragged into the chaos. The House Un-American Activities Committee wanted names, and Garfield refused to give them. That decision would cost him everything. Studio bosses who once celebrated his every move turned their backs overnight. Offers stopped coming. His name vanished from marquees. It didn't matter that he wasn't a communist, just that he wouldn't betray others to prove it. The blacklist chewed him up and spat him out. Under the weight of public suspicion and professional exile, his personal life crumbled. His marriage fell apart, and his health, already shaky from a childhood illness, got worse. At just 39 years old, John Garfield's heart gave out. But make no mistake, He didn't die of natural causes. He was killed by stress, heartbreak, and a brutal system that demanded conformity over courage. He died alone, not on a movie set, but in a friend's apartment, his legacy smeared by cruel rumors that he'd been hiding something. But there were no secrets left, just a broken man, betrayed by the very industry he helped build. Number 1. Clark Gable. The king of Hollywood died a death shrouded in whispers and studio cover-ups that continue to this day. Gable, the legendary star of Gone with the Wind, suffered a massive heart attack at 59. But what you haven't been told is how directly his final film contributed to his death. The Misfits, which also claimed Marilyn Monroe's life shortly after, required Gable to perform grueling physical stunts in the Nevada desert heat. Despite his already failing health, studio executives desperate to finish the troubled production pushed him beyond human limits. Gable, ever the professional, refused to use a stunt double, completing physically demanding scenes that doctors had explicitly warned could kill him. The devastating truth? Gable suffered his heart attack just days after filming ended. His body finally collapsed after being pushed too far. Even more heartbreaking, Gable's wife was pregnant when he died. He never lived to see his only biological child. The studio system that had worked him to death immediately set about sanitizing the circumstances, downplaying the connection between his final film and his fatal heart attack. His legacy as Hollywood royalty was preserved, but at the cost of the truth. Gable's death marked not just the end of a star, but the end of Hollywood's golden age itself. If these tragic endings shocked you, just wait until you hear what some stars were hiding while they were alive. Hit that like button if you grew up watching any of these legends. Subscribe for more untold stories from Hollywood's hidden past, because what you think you know is only the beginning. And let us know in the comments which of these tragic deaths hit you the hardest.